I'm Belle Bear. This is Sacred Mechanics. Hey, it's Belle here. Today's conversation was a real treat. I sat down with filmmaker Oliver Marshall and we went deep. Not just into the world of music and visuals, though yes, he has incredible stories from behind the scenes with artists like Tyler the Creator, GoldLink, Denzel Curry, and Dumont, including a full week spent at Rick Rubin's place. But also, we went into the unseen. How could we not? We talked about the creative process, the role of intuition in storytelling, and even touched on the supernatural, the kind of experiences you don't often hear creatives speak about so openly. Whether you're an artist, a spiritual seeker, or just someone who loves peeking behind the curtain of extraordinary lives, you're going to want to stick around. This is one of those rare conversations that lights something up inside you, so settle in and enjoy. Welcome, Oliver Marshall. You may be about to enter this really perfect storm, Ollie, and just stop worrying about your age now.
Yeah, I really hope so. I feel like that's to me the best creative who could ever exist would be a 5-year-old with the brain of a 30-year-old or a 40-year-old, it's that childlike creativity that everyone wants to tap into. I remember as a kid you'd have so much you see your backyard now that you grew up in and you're like, oh, that was it? Because to you back then it was like fantasy land. It was bigger, it had more things, and there was a whole adventure there, whereas the adult mind comes in and goes, it's just a yard, needs a good mowing. Someone needs to work on the grass.
Yeah. Why do you think kids are like that? Do you think they'd stay like that if it didn't get knocked out of them?
I don't know. I think just as you get older, your brain becomes more practical, mature and develop. And I definitely found, I don't want to say my prime, but when I felt the most creative was probably up until 24. And for some reason, 18 through to 24, I just never cared. I didn't care about what I was doing. I was just having fun doing whatever I wanted to do. And there was such a lack of self-inflicted boundaries and structure. And when you're creating with no set expectation, there was just amazing stuff coming out. And because the baseline was absolutely zero, anything I made, I'm like, whoa, I did that. And it was so childlike. And then it felt like maybe 26, 25, it genuinely felt like within the space of 6 months, my brain just clicked into this more mature adult way of thinking, where this expectations started flooding in, the anxiety of life started flooding in, the stress of life. You have to do it, you have to make it, you want to be a filmmaker, you want to be there, and it just created just such unnecessary pressure. And now my goal is always okay, well, how can I get back to that way of thinking without expectation? And I've done a lot this year to do that. My goal this year was find value in life from things that are not career driven. Want to feel I started a herb garden in my backyard, got into rock climbing, and these are my things now. I love these things, and it takes a lot of pressure and expectation off filmmaking, which is the passion. And in doing so is almost, throttled the creativity to be a lot stronger, because I'm in more of a less intense mindset of always putting pressure on yourself.
I think that's golden. Between the ages of 18 and 24 for you, what were you doing? How can you summarize this? What was life like?
I was touring a lot. So when I was, as you know from the reel, when I was 18, I met that rapper, dude named GoldLink, and I did one show for him in Brisbane. I literally I Googled who's the managers. I Googled GoldLink managers, and I just emailed 5 or 6 random emails I found going, hey, I'm a camera guy, GoldLink's coming to town, can I take photos? And then I went along and did the, shot his show. I then cut a video with that footage, sent it to them, and they were like, oh, this is awesome. And at the time, like, cutting a video was just like, I just wanted it to look cool. There was no expectation of what's this trying to tell you? What's the story here? It was just, wow, that's a fun shot. And I would just slap it all together, and they were like, this is awesome. So then a few months later, they said, come to Asia with us, because obviously we're really close to Asia, so it's quite easy to get work there. So I went to Asia with them, and then a year later, I went to the US for 2 months and did a bus tour around the US, just documenting everything. And for about 5 or 6 years, which is 18 and 24, I was just 4 or 5 months of the year off touring, traveling, wherever. And then when I was back home, I would just cut at agencies to try and, get some income. And like it was paying me well, but like obviously nothing crazy. And I would just like push advertising and then push touring work. And it was way more than what most people were doing at that age. And so I didn't have expectations because it was just the norm. Like the norm was so big and grand. Like it peaked in just before COVID, so 2019. I went and did 2 months touring with Tyler the Creator. I don't know if you know him, but he's like mega artist. Like it was arenas all across the US.
Yeah, it's awesome.
We did Madison Square Garden, sold out. We did just the craziest shows, and then we had 2 weeks off in LA where we went and spent a week at Rick Rubin's recording studio. And I don't know if you've read any of Rick Rubin's books.
Yeah, I want to talk to you about this.
He's awesome.
Yeah.
I never got to meet him, but I got to spend a week he's got he lives up at the top of this hill, and then at the bottom of the hill, he's got a recording studio. And I spent a week there, which was just magic. It was the best headspace I've ever been in. And then from there, we dipped to Europe for a month to tour around Europe. And that was life. Like, I was just like, oh, I got to go to Europe next week. And I would be like, I'd get to the border control, and they'd be like, where are you flying to? I'm like, I have no idea, to be honest. I just look at the tour manager and be like, where are we going again? And it was so chaotic and full, and it was madness. And then COVID kind of brought a halt to all of that. And that was kind of when my, the norm for so long, which I didn't realize was so high, just fully disappeared. And suddenly I had to confront like this, what are you doing? What do you do with your future? Which, brought about that really restricting mindset of going like, oh, you're going to be a filmmaker, you're going to make movies. And I just put such a heavy expectation on it. And I tied very quickly my well-being and mental health to how well my career is doing, which is such an unhealthy relationship, especially in our industry.
Yeah, it's kind of toxic. Yeah.
It's very toxic. So this year's been kind of definitely a big pivot in the other direction of just tapping back into that flow and that way of being, sort of sitting on that higher level to allow everything to just come in. And because I don't think creativity is something you can force or plan for. You just have to be in the right state of mind to accept it.
Yeah, you need to find a way to like live like an adult and leave the door open somehow.
Exactly.
To let
That's
it
a
in.
great way to put it. How do you be an adult but be a kid at the same time?
Yeah, I think first step would be to give yourself permission. I think doing childish things and taking yourself out on adventures must never be lost for an artist, I think. Remembering you're allowed.
Well, I think there's a lot of, especially like with male creatives, there's a lot of like this idea of like the broken artist. And, like you want to be that damaged individual who's just so broken from creativity.
So complicated.
You don't want to allow yourself to do these fun things because it's childlike, and that's not how we're expected to be. And it's like I really rely on my partner to force me to go out and experience a lot of these things. Like, all I've managed to do is establish a few personal goals, like climbing and her herb garden. But in terms of like experiencing life, like, I lean on her to help me with that, because I'm terrible at it. If I don't have to do it, I often won't, and it's a really hard way to be.
Yeah, it's really good you've got someone like that to sort of remind you and pull you along. But even, it's like we become more and more rigid until you could snap, instead of staying flexible. Even doing things like turning your music up loud and all of this sort of stuff and just jumping around a bit, you very quickly lose that stuff if you don't stay in a mindset or hold on to it. And it's just, I don't know, I was going to say it's human nature, but no, it isn't. It's probably just modern life and how we're living here in this Western comfy little setup we've got going on, which is like also a constant stress. But I'm interested in the good old days for you. I'm teasing you because you're 28, but
Oh no, I've hit my peak and I'm on the way down.
when you were touring and doing what you love, and you would have been in the flow, right?
Mm.
You were probably with a group of people also in their flow. Would you
Mm.
say, like, you all moved together and everyone was having an awesome time? Did you learn anything from other creatives on how they approach their creativity, or did it just seem on tap to you, or the things they did, or their backstories that made you feel like there are tools there that you can learn, or you just think you're born with it and you want it and that's it?
Well, I think one thing that I fell in love with was this idea of, it is that it's the people around you. Like, there was a group of us, there's maybe 7 or 8 of us, and someone else coming into the mix would shift the energy, and you could see the energy react to that extra person. And the energy was awesome with, our group. And it at the time, it felt like I almost felt sorry for people who weren't a part of what we were doing. Looking back at that, it's like, that's crazy. You were just running around with the musician. But at the time, it felt like the most important thing in the world, what we were doing. That energy was so progressive. Like, when you are genuinely convinced that what you're doing is the greatest thing, that, like, the world needs this, that is such a powerful way to think, because that will just you're like, I have no other choice, I need to do this. And it was so exciting that it was one guy, it was GoldLink, and it was his vision, and we were all there to support and build that. Like, all of us were working together to try and make this guy as big as he could possibly be. And it was just a ride up. Like, things would just happen. And because you're so out and about and on the move, like, the situations you end up in and the people you speak to was just very inspiring. And that's one thing I found film has lacked for me anyway, is this collaboration. I want 8 or 9 people around me who are all just pursuing the same goal together. We've got one end goal, and I want to feel like it's the most important thing, and almost feel sorry for people who aren't a part of that. Like, I would be in America walking around and see people go to their 9 to 5s, and I'm like, look at these suckers. If they could be a part of this. And it was like, I don't know, there was never an obvious creative process, but just the energy with what we were doing worked. And obviously, when we'd be in the recording studio, like, it would, he would cut, the artist would go off into his little creative process. And for musicians, a lot of that comes to the environment that they're in. Like, that's another thing I love is that, like, edit suites in filmmaking are just these boxed off rooms in some building that's like, it's a corporate office essentially. Recording at Rick Rubin's studio is by the beach in this old white chapel. We had a petting zoo one day. We had all these animals come to the recording studio. So he's recording, making music, and there's just alpacas wandering through the recording studio. And it's just like there's a chaos to it that is so inspiring. And then now to this day, like a big goal is, well, how do you get that back? But how do I make it my own? How do I, have a film idea that has that drive and the people around it doing that? And once you tap into that, like it's an unstoppable force, because a lot of what we do is just us sitting by ourselves, thinking of ideas and seeing if it sticks, and maybe hitting someone up for coffee to chat about it.
I'm really into spirituality around conversation, discussion about people and their purpose. What are they here for? What's their thing? What's their main assignment? And also, it's really hard to know what that is, but I think you've just highlighted something where if you feel like what you're doing is something the world needs and it's really important, it's probably your main assignment, I reckon.
100%.
And also, when you're doing something hyper exciting that feels poignant for the moment you're living in, you do feel like you're king of the world, or, absolutely. I remember when I was about 20 or 22, I was working as a production assistant and a sound recorder, sound person. I don't even know what it is. We went to LA, right? And I learned how to record sound on the flight on the way over because the dude that was going to do the sound dropped out. And I was meant to be the PA, but I had to do sound for this documentary, and we shot in LA and Vegas. But we shot for a week behind the scenes on Baywatch show, which at the time was the most screened show like on the planet.
Wow.
And I'm standing, next to Pamela Anderson getting her makeup put on. She's like, "Good morning" to me and everything. And I was like, I am at the center of the universe right now. I was holding a boom and making coffee. But I get it. You feel like you're in the middle of something really powerful. Those moments that sort of build your career as tiny building blocks become everything, and you'll reflect on them, and you're always trying to seek and get that next rush, I think, of being in the flow.
100%.
It sounds like you've been in the flow actually quite a bit, and I think maybe you're better at it than you realize.
Yeah, you reckon?
Yeah.
What
Yeah,
makes
I
you
do.
think that?
Lots of time in. You've had continuous expanded experiences, and you had a group where not everyone has the luxury of a like-minded group to work in all the time, and I think this is a gift. And how you've been at Rick Rubin's place and there's been alpacas inside.
Yeah, that was crazy. And like, even on top of that, it felt like that energy attracts similar energy. Like, we would run into so many people who are doing their own main character journey, and they're doing the most important thing in the world. Like, a guy came in to the studio one night with a metal briefcase that he had all padlocked and had it all prepared, and he opened it, and there was all these little cartoon figures in it, and we found out he's pitching a show to Cartoon Network. And it's like, to him, that was his thing, and that was the center of his universe. And all these people felt like what they were doing was the most important thing, which I guess in turn is their calling. Like, it just feels right. It feels like you're on that wave and you're riding it, And for me, that's why I always say I'm obsessed with this idea of pop culture, because I love sitting at the fringes of it and watching these people create their art on the fringe of what's in and what's cool, and there's these circles moving, and it's so fascinating to be a part of. And I hope it's eventually a conversation I get to be a part of through film. Like, I'd love to make a film that taps into pop culture.
Maybe if you are making a film, you'll be writing pop culture.
Yeah, this is what I mean. You're at the fringes of it. You are shaping how that comes out. And I watched firsthand that happen. Like Tyler, the creator, he's making waves. He's massive. And I got to witness his energy and the people around him and his journey. And it's just this thing that they've built where there's just people and things happening. And, they got enough started and moving that it's now just this ever rolling ball down a hill that just keeps growing and growing. And it's I think that's the goal for a lot of creatives, is end up in that space with their ideas. They want their idea to get that traction and start attracting the right people, and then they're stuck on this creative roller coaster, until it's done.
Yeah, that's so good. And also to think of an artist's output and all the other future artists that were inspired by that. It's how the vine grows and the energy behind that. It's electric, and it just attaches to the next person and off they go.
That's it.
So with energy and ideas and things like that, have you ever wondered where ideas come from?
My understanding and what I've believed is there's ways to draw thoughts, and there's ways to tap into that flow to allow these thoughts to become really clear and visual and engaging. But in my mind, thoughts are just stem from the palette that is your life, and it's the building blocks that you grew up with, and that sort of influences the way your mind thinks. And my focus is less on how do I think these thoughts. It's like I said, how do I receive these thoughts, and you're not putting pressure on thinking of the right ideas and coming up with thoughts. But I feel like the brain's just, I don't get it. Does anyone get it?
People are trying to get it. There's some really cool theories. Yeah, there's some really cool theories about...
What are some of the theories?
I'll try and explain this as simply as I can in a really rudimentary way. But if think of our brain as an antenna, and that there's a field of energy and ideas, and we just put the antennas up and pull them down. David Lynch used to talk about this,
big
like
fish, little
fishing.
fish.
Yeah.
I've read that book. It's beautiful.
Yeah, it's the same concept, and people like David Lynch know. They just know when they're meditators, and they're seeing that separation of consciousness, unconsciousness, the brain, the field where there's all these thoughts and ideas and these shared energy, I suppose, and you just pull it in. So there's a couple of ways I look at this sometimes. If I have to come up with an idea really quickly, instead of trying really hard now, I don't try. And that's the difference maybe from 36 years experience working as a creative. I just don't try. I just open the door.
Yeah.
I'm like, okay, Spirit Squad or whoever's in charge of the ideas today, I'm going to go for a walk and have a cup of tea, and I'm going to sit there with the door, and my job is to hold the door open. Your job to just tip as much stuff in there as you can, and I'll sift through it and deliver it to the client.
I mean, it's gotta be like everything I read it always comes back to that. Like you look at that book, The Artist's Way, where they talk about let it flow through you and into your hand, and shut your mind off and just write what comes to you. And then Rick Rubin talks about the zeitgeist of ideas, and when it comes to making your idea, it's not your idea, it's an idea, and you're just the one who's going to make it. And if you choose not to, someone else will. Like it's funny that it all just leads back to that core idea of just there is this weird ethereal field of ideas and things just waiting to happen.
Yeah, well, it's consciousness. And other areas of reading and study I've been doing is that even thoughts are things and consciousness is a thing. And what really totally blew my mind a few weeks ago was this idea that water is conscious.
Whoa. I need to go
The
smoke
lady's
a
name
joint.
escapes me, this incredible woman in New Zealand. I'll have to put it in the show notes. And she has water, and she'll ask it a question, like about the future, the past, or something, or show me this. And then she's got a special freezing technique, And then when she looks at the frozen water, the ice, it's got an image in it or a word in answer to her question.
Oh my God.
So that's just mind-bending and incredible.
Wow.
And then in shamanism and animism, this idea is that everything's made of atoms, particles, and everything's alive.
Mm,
My pen, my
mm,
table, you. And
mm,
therefore, everything's sort of the one thing. So when we've got ideas and consciousness, we're just pulling things in as we need them.
mm,
So when we think about our mind as a vessel, like collecting things, maybe part of creativity is this as well. And of course, we've got our brain that's our filter that's lived through all our life experiences that sort of picks what we want
mm.
and delivers it.
So when you look at people who aren't in touch with their creative thinking, do you think that they just shut off to receiving these ideas?
Yeah, we have to take the lid off. It's like
Mm.
popping a cap off top of their head. Let some stuff in, let some light.
How do you do that?
Well, you have to decide and want to.
Mm.
It's a conscious decision to be open to things. Sometimes people are not making that conscious decision and have a life-altering experience, which blows their mind. But for everyone else, you just decide to open the door. And then
Mm.
we've got meditation and mindfulness and even reading and learning about these really intense topics opens the crown chakra and lets in information. You have to sort of, whatever we ingest as information, like digitally, like films are watching, shows, reading, music, it's all got a vibration and energy and a feeling, and
Mm.
we can take it on board. So we're magnetic in that way. So you can
Mm.
choose to, head in that direction of developing your creative consciousness and opening up and awakening, and you'll become more magnetic to the stuff you want.
Mm. Now the hard part, once you have the idea, what do you do with it? Like how one thing I always struggle with is I'm like, like there's a film idea I've sat on for 3 years now, and I'm just like constantly trying to, like, every few months I'll revisit it and be like, have I figured anything else out? Have I seen how it might progress? And then I'll always get into this rut of like, why this? Why does this matter? And why is this important? And why is this worth investing time? And will people feel the same way? And then if that critic in your head's too high, it'll often tell me to stop and walk away and, oh no, that's not the idea. People won't care about that. Like, pursue something else. It's like you get this idea that is very romanticized and beautiful. And as soon as you dig into the details of it, it's suddenly like you draw out a lot of the challenges and complexities and potholes of the narrative. And you're like, it suddenly becomes a very practical way of thinking, which will turn me off an idea.
Yeah, that's no good. That's like the parent talking. Gee, I wish we had a psychologist on the call or a psychiatrist.
Yeah. Oh, amen.
But you know what I mean? Like that beautiful part of the idea, the ego is like, that's a stupid idea. No one's going to like that. And who's going to listen to this? And who's going to watch that? And no one even likes this music. And you're not talented enough and blah, 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 blah. A lot of people just listen to this and do nothing about their ideas. Everyone has ideas to some degree. And then you have to build the craft and the skill to deliver them to a certain quality or standard, which is our life's work, I suppose. But maybe your approach to getting the idea on paper is not right for you.
Mm.
Maybe you need to find a more fun way.
Yeah,
Just,
that could be
yeah.
interesting.
I mean, back to David Lynch, was it 70 cards? He said if you've got 70 ideas and you put each of them on a card, you've got a film.
70 scenes.
70 scenes or just ideas, and you can pad them out. But I've got to film a screenplay at that stage now, and I've only got about 20 cards. Can't get the other 50, but the 20 are really good. And I'll chip away at it. But you've got to find a way that's enjoyable, and you maybe learn to push the ego aside and lock them out of the room
Yeah,
for as long
ego
as you
has
can.
been a very difficult thing. I think, especially being around musicians and rappers in particular, there's a lot of ego in that space of like always trying to appear as the cool guy and, You know, everything's got to be trendy and God forbid you're vulnerable for a second. I found that carried on with me, and I would always be so afraid to put stuff out because I always wanted to be like good or that guy, and just instantly start producing flipping Tarantino level work from your first film, and it was like I'd always struggle of like, oh, I don't want to put myself out there and do all that, and it was ego, pure ego. And now that's why I've been reading The Power of Now, which everyone's bloody read at this point.
Yeah.
But just his teaching of blocking the ego mind and being present with just who you
Yeah.
are.
So it's almost as if you need to approach your first film or all the films that you will make like your five. That child we were talking about earlier that doesn't care
Yeah,
what
how do
other
you
people
tap
think.
into that? And then how do you like what's the balance of, the creative mind versus the critical mind going like, okay, you let the 5-year-old take over and create these things, but knowing if they're good or not, Like I watched Sinners the other day. Awesome film. And there's a scene in it where they're like, this doesn't spoil anything. The camera's like flying around this venue, and the film's set in like the 1930s Mississippi, like that sort of cotton picking era, and there's like this black club and everyone's dancing in it. But he makes this point of like music crosses time and boundaries and it connects us, and he's put in like past and future and different cultures, and it becomes very fantasized. And like he'll fly past a dude in a futuristic outfit with like a metal, like a guitar playing like rock music, and I'm imagining like he lets his mind come up with this crazy idea, but then he's got to tell himself like this is good, this is going to work. And then when you're on a set for like tens or hundreds of millions of dollars with producers from the companies there watching over your shoulder, and next minute this dude dressed in a futuristic metallic fit with an electric guitar walks into the 1930s Mississippi film set, they would all look at him and be like, are you sure? And he's like, yeah, trust me, it'll be good. And it's like knowing not just how to come up with the ideas, but make sure they actually work. That feels like two competing ways of thinking. Isn't there that saying that like your first idea is never good?
Yeah, I don't think that's true. First idea is never good. Yeah, I could debate that, but let's not. Let's just talk about what you're talking about. Once you get to that stage, making the film, that's where you're handing over some of the responsibility. And absolutely, by the time you're on set, all you have to do is be 5 years old. And think of the crew and the team around you. There's someone to watch your back. There's someone to make sure you've got the right coffee. And there's someone making sure that the continuity is correct and the lighting's correct. And there's someone supervising the script. The talent have taken on and embodied the characters. There's all that stuff. And all you need to do is keep that raw, creativity and energy alive so that your idea continues to leap off the page. So it's like you need that energy in the beginning to have the idea. You get it to a certain point and then people come in and help you structure it. You can kind of get away with being the crazy creative one. That's not a bad archetype if that's what you need. And then, people just tumbleweed onto projects and help where you feel you've got a blind spot or a weakness and you don't want to deal with the numbers or the whatever or this or that, so that you can just be you and do you. And surely you witness this on tour with the artist.
Yeah, 100%. There's just people to block everything. I've literally heard a tour manager being like, my job is to make sure the artist has to think about as little as humanly possible. Like they just focus on creating their art. But like a lot of them had to, they started having to do what we do, improve themselves and come up to a point where they can fill a 10,000 capacity room with people who want to hear their music.
Yeah.
I feel like I don't want to say it's easier once you get to that level, but it'd be nice to hit that level where you have so much in place and Yeah,
Yeah, so
totally.
the more you can attune and practice transcending all the bureaucracy and structure that's been put on the creative arts commercially, the happier you'll be. You just
100%.
somehow learn to switch it off and on a bit more as you progress, then you can do the dance as you need to.
Do you meditate often?
I try
How often?
only every few days.
It's hard.
It's hard. I'm trying to do, I want to get to twice a day. And I was going to sign up to learn transcendental meditation because I think I'd really love it, but I haven't.
Yeah.
So I have all these other techniques and all sorts of things. But what I've been trying to do lately, which is really fun, is those, I can't think of at the moment, the CIA recordings.
CIA recordings.
Yeah, the CIA spent a lot of time working in the psychic arts and all sorts of, I guess, transcendental sort of techniques and things like that, mind reading, telepathy, telekinesis, everything. They went there, and there was a lot of documentation that was sort of hidden away. I've lost all my words, but there's some things that have been released, including sound recordings and documentation, on how to attune the mind during meditation. Like I've learned that there's two hemispheres to the brain and how to synchronize them, and it's a
Jesus
program. And I've
Christ.
started, no, done just a little bit of the beginning, but it's full on amazing and intense. So I'll get back to when I finish that. Maybe I'll be levitating in our next call.
Yeah. I can't wait to tell people I have a friend doing the CIA meditation.
People, it's on Spotify. You can find it.
Really?
I just can't think of the name right now, but
Yeah, every time I meditate, I feel awesome. And I'm like, I gotta do this more. And then I just don't.
it's so good. I do shamanic healing and things like that, so I journey and do all of that sort of thing, but it's sort of a meditation. I maybe do that more frequently where I'm more go into a trance, but it's a wild ride where I'm shown imagery and get different sensations and messages, so it's
Wow.
not necessarily relaxing.
Yeah, that sounds intense.
So meditation is really disconnecting from all of that.
So what do you think happens when we die?
Well, our energy goes back to the plane where we came from.
Yeah.
And then, things get reviewed and we can come back or not. We have to make sure we've sort of done that assignment we were discussing and learnt some lessons or not and come back. But as a psychic medium, I have zero doubt in my mind in life after death. A lot of cold calls. I used to do psychic medium work with clients that they'd email me and I'd only know the city they lived in and their first name. And they'd give me the first name of the person they were trying to contact. And I'd do it alone in my office where I'd tune in the middle of the night and ask to speak to so-and-so. And I'd receive messages and then write back to the person asking. And
Wow.
they would be like, oh my God. And I could tell them what they were wearing and what they did as a job and so many things. And every time I did it, I'd thought, it's not real, it can't be. And every time, like hundreds of clients were back going, you did it. It was amazing.
Wow.
But when I'd get a connection, I get covered in goosebumps and my teeth chatter a bit, and I get cold, like I know someone's here. And so any
Wow.
thought I have then, because I don't audibly hear them, I just start having thoughts, or I see little flashes of pictures of what they might look like if they're trying to show me. But they use symbols. It's like a really hard game of charades
Mm,
sometimes.
wow. Do you prescribe to any religions, or how does that sort of play into religious
Um,
beliefs?
I actually just did an episode about this. My mother's Maltese and she's Roman Catholic. My
Yep.
father's more Church of England, or he doesn't actually give a damn about religion. He's just never gone into it. But I went to Catholic school all the way through.
Mm,
And then in my teens, got into Buddhism. And then I got
wow.
into New Age stuff. And that's when I learned energy healing and all of that. As I started getting in touch with my gifts, it sounded more shamanic than anything. So shamanism is sort of doesn't feel like a religion to me. It's just a way of being, and it's a way to exist. So I'm fascinated by religion and study it at university, all sorts of religions, just to compare and contrast. Tell me, Ollie, what was your upbringing, if you don't mind? Like, how were you raised as far as religion or spirituality? Do you have like a preset mold, or are you like freestyling the whole time since a child?
No, very religious. My dad is a pastor. He's a Christian Baptist. He's a Baptist pastor. So he has a church. So we grew up in a very religious household. He'd preach twice on a Sunday, and then we moved to America for a while, and he started a church in America,
Wow.
and our house became the office, the church offices, like prayer groups on a Thursday, and it was a whole ordeal. I've actually always wanted to make a movie on it called Bible Belt, because he made it in the heart of Texas. This Aussie
Wow.
pastor trying to make a church, and I love the idea of religion. I love when I speak to him, and I'm like, I'll say to him, "What happens when you die?" And he's like, "Oh, I go to heaven." And I'm like, what a great feeling that must be, to just know that you die and you wake up in this beautiful paradise no matter what. Like, if you're, a Christian and you gave your life to Christ, and I'm like, that is such a must be such a wonderful feeling. And I believe in spirituality. I believe in higher being and this whole ethereal realm that we can't understand. Whether or not it aligns with traditional Christian values, I'm not sure. But it's something I've just never really, some trauma I've waited to dive into when I finally make that film. Yeah, because it was awesome. It was a great upbringing. Like, there's some just fantastic stories there. Like, my mum's a clinical psychologist now. Yeah, the psychologist and the
Dang,
religion
that's who we
just,
needed on the call.
yeah. Let me call
Talk
my
about the
mum up,
subconscious.
get my mum in. Yeah, it was chaos, and it was exciting, and I was definitely a free thinker. I've always been allowed to, run off with whatever I wanted to. There was never a like, you're gonna do this, you're gonna do that. And I think I inherited a lot from my dad, who is one of the best public speakers you'll ever meet. Like, he can make friends with anyone, and it's helped me a lot as a filmmaker. Borrow from that. But yeah, it was a very interesting upbringing. It was very not traditional to what a lot of kids went through. But I guess that makes him a very spiritual person and very in touch with this idea of a higher being. And it's almost like he's just given, like, it's almost like Christianity just gives identity to this ethereal thing that is really hard to grasp.
Yeah. Organized religion, that's what they're trying to do. It's like trying to catch your own shadow, right? And it's a way to
Mm.
contextualize esoteric and really elusive information and feelings to the everyday person.
Yeah, you got a photo of him up on your wall, and you're like, oh, that's the dude in charge of all that.
Yeah.
It goes on in my head. Like, it's a very practical way of thinking, and it's, for a lot of people, it's community. It's the sense of belonging and having a place to be and spend
Yeah.
time with people. And I think a lot of people need that. Obviously, there's dark sides with any religion, but from what I saw and what I grew up with, it was a very loving place. And if I was in the streets at 1 a.m. and got shot, I would crawl to the steps of a church and bang on the door and
Yeah.
be like, give me help.
Yeah. Yeah. I recently put a short film I made through the film festival circuit, and I've just put on YouTube. It's called Citizens of Eternity, and it's just me talking about what I think God is. And
Wow, I need to look this up.
yeah, so you probably have to watch the whole thing. It's 15 minutes long, but it's not,
Oh yeah, I'll watch it after.
yeah, not now. It's not dude in a white robe.
Yeah.
But there's a higher consciousness, but in a way, it's like we are the consciousness.
Mm.
So it seems so audacious to say, and I say in the film, it's like, I am God, and you are God. And it's like if everything's alive and conscious, like we were talking before, the way the universe is built, of these building blocks that are each conscious, including water, it's God trying to experience itself.
Mm.
And it's really difficult to explain and put a handle on, but it's beautiful in a way where everything is just magical when you look at the world in that way. Every
I've
expression of a person or an animal.
mm, I've heard that, this idea that life is just consciousness trying to experience itself.
Yeah. And consciousness is source energy, which is God, which people don't necessarily say, but God is a word, and it's just the only way we can sort of package this idea that's super powerful. It's a powerful
These are
idea.
heavy thoughts. What got you thinking so in depth about life and the idea? You know, you're a flipping philosopher now.
Yeah. I've had some really full on personal experiences that I can't explain. Woken up to like a 9 foot tall angel standing at the foot of my bed. I nearly died of fright. Woken to balls of like lightning or energy in my bedroom that's just hovered.
Wow.
I've spoken to dead people. I see dead people. Like, I've just had a lot of uncountable experiences like this since I was a little girl.
Wow.
So I've had the context of religion and everything and all of that, but on the outskirts of that, there's all this other stuff. I've rarely found people in my life I can talk to about where they're just going to be like, whatever, or no, or like it's too
Some people
big.
are just so in tune with it. Like my stepmom's like that. She just is so like just seems to be the target of a lot of these things. And you meet people like that who are just seem to always have the wild dreams that predict stuff and the things happen. Like I've never had anything happen that I'm like, wow, how did I've never had anything, especially like being in the church, you always hear about people coming to Christ through these crazy experiences and
Yeah.
whatnot. And I'm like, I've never experienced
Yeah.
anything like that.
It's either leaving that door wide open, maybe a bit too open to do your day to day. But what I do learn in all of this is that it got too much when I was a bit younger than you. I was in my mid-20s and I was really into my career, and it was really interfering with my work because I'd be sitting in a boardroom meeting trying to make a presentation for a big campaign, and there's 3 people standing behind my client and they're not living. Or there's
Whoa.
flashing lights around them. And
Whoa.
I remember once we were in a meeting with our accountant. I was running an agency, and I knew that his wife had passed away a few years before, and there was just all this light shooting around the room, and I knew it was her, and I'm just trying to talk to him about the tax return and this and that.
Oh
And I was like, this is
God.
getting really not cool. Like, I can't do my work. And so I had to work and meditation and other things to turn it off and shut it
Wow.
down. So now and also while I had young children, it was just too much. You can't walk around and live your life not knowing what's going to fly out at you 1 minute to the
Wow.
next. So you learn to control it, and I'm now trying to open it up more now that my kids are growing up and I have more time on my hands for exploring this frontier of spirituality and what's out there. And you can open that door a bit through meditation, but it is controllable, and I think it's a craft as you sort of get into it and understand the mechanisms or the sacred mechanics of how everything works.
Yeah, what's crazy is I'm like here going before speaking to you, I'm like, oh yeah, I'm getting open, accepting these things, and then I speak to you and I'm like, oh my God, I'm just at the scratching the surface of
It's just it's a lifelong thing. It's not like I'm gonna learn yoga and you just do it. It's just a
mm,
life thing. It's an unfoldment. And half of the things, like my stuff that I just told you, is like shock therapy. Most of those experiences, I don't think you're supposed to be, but I was scared stiff. The angel one, and my first husband, when I was young, was with me. It was Christmas Eve. We were in my parents' house. And I was so terrified that I couldn't move. And I'll just move my eyes to see if he was next to me. And he was. And I'm hurting myself to see if I'm awake.
wow.
And when I shut my eyes to escape the fear and what I could see, it was a perfectly beautiful vision, but I was terrified. I could still see it. So it's a
Wow.
total invasion of your senses. You're not in charge anymore.
My
This was
God.
terrifying. And then I woke up, after that had finished, let's say it lasted an hour, I woke up. I'm a morning person, up early, went upstairs to see my mum, and it was Christmas. And she handed me my first gift of the day, and it was a book on angels. And I was like, oh my God. And
Wow.
I had to go sit on the beach. They live near the beach. I had to sit there for a while and just decompress and like
Wow.
recover. It was just a few things like this have happened that shook me to the core. And
Has it
maybe,
always been like this? Like since you were young?
yeah, but what's my problem that I have to work out is when these things happen to me, I'm like, what do you want me to do? Why are you here? What's the message? Like I'm in the movies, right? Just tell me
Hmm.
what I'm supposed to do. There's
Hmm.
nothing. They don't write a little
Wow.
note and say, here, Belle, go do this.
Yeah,
Here's your
yeah, yeah.
instructions and your assignment. I've got no information. I don't know what I'm doing. And that's maybe why I'm so interested in how people seek out their life purpose and learn what it is. Because I'm 53. I don't know what it is. I don't know. I just do all this different stuff. I do whatever comes to me, and I've had pretty intense experiences, but no clear path. And I'm jealous of people that have a clear vision that they are here to do this one thing, like musicians, and they just do music and they've got
Hmm.
this one and they're on rails. I'm like, wow, that must be so liberating just to have this one thing.
Yeah, well, you remind me a lot of my partner because I'm like that. I've got the one vision. Like when I'm on set, I'm on cloud nine. That's my favorite place to be. Every time I do that, I'm like, this is what I'm meant to do. Whereas
That's
my
awesome.
partner is more just loves life and culture, art and soaking things up, and there's no clear direction. There's just absorbing everything life has to offer. And it's fascinating to me. And I desperately need that. And that's why I always lean on her for these things because she is that. She reads everything and appreciates everything so much more because she's just kind of floating through it and enjoying it. Whereas I'm like, this is my thing. I'm doing this. This is what I want to do. Back in the old English days, it was known as a flaneur. Do you know what that is?
No, tell me more about this.
A flaneur was, I could be getting this wrong, but a flaneur is a male who's born into wealth, so they don't ever have to work. And all they would do is just wander the streets. They'd wander the streets, they would eat, they would drink, they would see shows, go to galleries, and return back to their nice houses and live in it. And that was a thing. That was a thing people did. Some people just don't have the thing. The life is their thing and just
Yeah.
romanticizing life.
My mother calls it gallivanting. She used to say it when I was young, you've been out gallivanting. It didn't sound good to me. It was like I was being bad, but I've always been a
Mm.
wanderer and
Mm.
an artist. And it's just, and I always, I had my career. I took it as far as I could with design and being a creative director and still doing bits of that. It was sort of like the spine of it. But all the other things, my goodness, there's a
Mm.
lot which could be perceived as directionless. Maybe when I'm dead, everyone will just like put all the stuff I produced in a box and go,
Yeah.
look at all the stuff Belle made.
Yeah. Bell's box of chaos. It's a bit of everything. That's fun. No,
Yeah.
you do some really cool stuff. And I just appreciate that you actually pursue it and actually follow through on a lot of these things. Because you're like one step away from being the stoner on the couch playing Xbox all day.
Yeah. I think about that. I was thinking about computer games yesterday, thinking maybe, we're worrying about that they're bad for kids, but maybe they're actually good for the brain because it's a sort of meditation and you're unplugging your
Oh,
consciousness and
they are
doing something
so
else.
good. Even storytelling.
Yeah.
There's such good storytelling in video games. And I'm so excited to retire now because, I used to be scared of retirement because I see I've been to senior homes and gone, oh God, I don't want this. Now I'm like, it'll be me and the guys. We'll have our PlayStations. We'll be joining up on chats and crushing each other, and it's like, it's gonna be awesome.
I remembered the name of the CIA meditation tapes. It's
Yeah, what
called the
is it?
Gateway Experience. So check it
Is it
out.
like guided?
Yeah, it's a man talking of the day. I think maybe it's 1950s or 60s, or maybe I'm wrong, but it sounds like that. It's got that 1960s TV man voice.
They look
If you just want to
intense.
go sort of astral travel next level, that might be the start for you. You can do it.
This looks wild. I'm
Yeah.
gonna try this.
Okay, good. Because I think someone with a mind like yours that gets into something like that's going to be really intense.
Do you ever do psychedelics?
No, I've never taken any drugs in my life.
Any drugs?
No drugs, never taken drugs.
Wow.
I think I've got enough
Yeah.
problems without them.
Yeah, I'm
I see
terrified
enough
of.
weird shit.
Yeah, I cannot touch psychedelics. I've never touched them. I
No,
freak out at the idea of taking something that just starts altering your mind and things start moving and changing and
yeah. Well, yeah, I'm going to do it when I'm really, really lady.
yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah. I might get locked up and stuff because I'll think I've lost it, but that's okay. It doesn't matter so much then. I'm worried I won't come back.
Isn't your whole third eye like when you die your body releases DMT and you go on like the trip of a lifetime?
Yeah, I've heard that. Yeah.
It's gonna be a fun trip.
Yeah.
Because you read about people taking DMT and they can like see numbers and things and they see the plane of reality and just I'm like wow. Doesn't that for you does that not make you very curious? Like to take DMT and see what
It
these people are
does.
talking.
But it does. Like, what fascinates me is that people can see the same thing, and
Mm,
that's really amazing. But I have access to all sorts of things through a trance state that I've been trained to enter for shamanic healing. So I get to see all that stuff if I want to anyway. It's not always
wow.
fun anyway. It's pretty intense, but I guess with DMT you're inducing that experience and it's really in your face and
Mm,
maybe unnaturally rocking your world beyond for a person that's not trained all their life to do that or prepared for it. So it's a bit like I don't know,
mm.
you know,
Yeah,
you
God
want to be
forbid
pretty stable and come back okay.
the day something extra spiritual or anything happens to me, I'm gonna flip out. If I see a ghost one day, I'm screwed. I am not stable enough to deal with that.
Well, I hope that if that day happens, it's really quite delightful and fun and fine.
Mm.
And that the gods are kind to you, Ollie.
Show me something good. Give me something approachable. I don't want a giant angel at the end of my bed.
That was something. Like, at first I thought it was a giant man because it was a silhouette because it was the middle of the night and there was moonlight outside. But then it
Oh
spread its
no.
it spread
Oh
its wings
no.
out that filled the whole room, and then I was dead. I was like, okay,
No.
and I could hear the wings unfold. It was audible. It
Oh,
just
yuck.
it
Hey, wouldn't that be pleasant? Was it a good
like it's
angel?
supposed to be beautiful and amazing. I think it was Archangel Michael, sort of. It was incredible, but I was terrified in the moment. I was like, why am I scared if this is an angel? I'm not meant to be feeling like this. But it was just I don't know, I wasn't expecting that. It just really got me. So, yeah, so I looked to my right to see my husband, and there's this little man next to the bed in white with gold cuffed hands, and he's running his hand over the aura of my husband, and he's nodding and smiling at me. He was totally illuminated as if there was a spotlight on
Oh,
him. And he was trying to reassure me by looking at me, going, "It's okay." But I was like, guys, this is not okay. I'm not feeling good. This is too much.
wow.
It was insane. And just trying to wake myself up, but I was awake, and then shutting my eyes because I didn't want to see it anymore. And just said that because in the past, if I shut my eyes long enough, the thing goes away, like gives up.
Yeah.
But no, they're still in my face with my eyes shut. Like,
Wow.
yeah.
That's
And then
unbelievable.
Yes, that's it. It is unbelievable.
And it's
It's
stuck
as
with you
clear as yesterday for me, these things.
wow.
And yeah, I still ask for the why and the what. But
Still don't know it.
no, not
Do you think
really.
there's a meaning to life or a purpose?
Yeah.
What do you think that is?
I think we go round and round on this merry-go-round until we attain enlightenment or pure. We know how to purely love.
Mm,
I think if all consciousness is source energy or God, trying to experience itself through this plane of existence, we strive to try and experience pure love.
mm,
And that's not so easy to do, right, as a mere human, to,
mm.
to be like that. It's a challenge. A bit like meditating's a challenge.
Yeah. It's one thing I always struggled with was like you would have these experiences that are meant to be what a lot of people consider the best life can give you, whether that's family or friends or things that are meant to feel really loving. And in your head, I'd kind of go like, is this it? Is this what it is? Is this as good as it gets?
Well, it's what you make it. You got to open all the right doors for yourself.
Exactly.
And you're
That's what I'm
given,
learning.
there's people around you that are here to teach us all sorts of things, for better or worse,
Mm,
and vice versa. But if you think about the unlimited opportunities you have and how you feel, you're responsible for how you feel and how you think and operate. That it's perfect opportunity. It's just whether you have the drive or the energy or the ambition to better yourself, to be more open and aware and awake. And
mm,
it's hard work. It really is. I mean, you don't just decide that's what you're going to do and you wake up the next day and you're done. It's a life of just
mm,
trying to attain a certain purity in your consciousness
It's very difficult.
in between paying the rent and
Yeah, exactly.
feeding yourself and raising children or, you know, human responsibilities.
Yeah, exactly.
All
I got
right.
some stuff I gotta work on.
Me too.
Some life to focus on.
It's all about the creativity, I think, and your creative output because what you're putting out on the page and the stories you're trying to tell comes from a very special place inside you. It's your consciousness wanting to express itself.
Well, that's the goal this year, is just be aware that you are conscious and be aware of the present. And it's, for me at the moment, it's as simple as that.
That's beautiful. Hmm.
Yeah. Whether or not we get there, different
You just keep
story.
striving. I really appreciate you coming onto the Sacred Mechanics podcast today. I've been waiting to talk to you since our last super long conversation at South by Southwest.
That was fun.
Yeah, but I think we'd spent time, well, in my memory, we walked for like 5 or 6 hours and just talked
We
the whole
did.
way. The premise of Sacred Mechanics podcast is to see where there's a fusion point between creatives or creativity and spirituality and ideas and where they come from. You just seem like perfect guinea pig.
I'm still
Oh,
learning.
that's the fun. No one understands. We just get to talk about it.
I don't think you ever do understand. Please go check out the Gateway Experience and see you on the other side.